Guarantee and the Youth Employment Initiative. I'll give the floor, first of all, to Mr. Händel. You have 5 minutes.
Frau Kommissarin, sehr verehrte
Madam Commissioner, ladies and gentlemen, the Youth Guarantee and the Youth Employment Initiative are both essentially tools for fighting youth unemployment. We've got some work off the ground to end this misery, but they are yet to have full effect, and more is urgently necessary, I would say. Allow me to take the current occasion to refer back to an interview yesterday by the German Finance Minister, Mr. Schäuble, who lambasted the Commission. If it's unable to solve problems quickly, then national governments will need to take hold of things and work things through together without Brussels, he said. And that was then applied to the topic of youth unemployment. I'm the last person, ladies and gentlemen, to spare the Commission criticism, but on this question alone, I think surely you wouldn't expect the archetypal disciple of austerity in Europe to say that the Commission was unable to take any action. Perhaps it's not time for Brussels bashing, but getting rid of youth unemployment is first and foremost for the Member States, including those with lower levels of youth unemployment. Schäuble is now suggesting an alliance for youth training. It's not exactly a new idea. The Commission should take him by his word, nonetheless, Mrs. Thyssen. But the talk should be of an employment fund, which especially the wealthy Member States will contribute to. These are initiatives that we've already discussed in the Employment Committee, and which I personally have started up in Thüringen and in Bavaria. What is clear is that the EU level can initiate, provide financial support and coordinate implementation, but Member States will have to work on this. In April 2013, as early as then, the Member States started up a youth guarantee scheme by which all young people should be given a good quality offer of employment, continued education, apprenticeship or a traineeship within a period of 4 months of becoming unemployed or leaving formal education. And the idea was to provide support for young people under the age of 30 in regions where youth unemployment was especially high. The funding was front-loaded within the first 2 years of the MFF. The Member States were allowed considerable pre-financing, and that was increased to 30% in 2015. But things have bogged down. Youth unemployment is still unacceptably high. Something has been done, but far too little, and it's too slow. And the regional differences are striking. Statements and reports from the European Court of Auditors, the Council of Employment and Social Policy Ministers are now available. We need clear facts and figures for the way forward and for looking at the future MFF. Can the Commission report to Parliament on the latest findings of their evaluation? Is the implementation happening properly for the youth guarantee schemes? What about the quality of offers and the sustainability of results? Are the programmes and the funds being used properly? Has the increased pre-financing sped up the take-up rate? What about access to the YG and ESF financing? Has that been sped up? Does it need to be sped up? Does the Commission consider that further investment is necessary in the Youth Guarantee and the Youth Employment Initiative? I'd like to emphasize once again a point that's been made many times. We are losing an entire generation, and an entire generation is losing its faith in Europe. This is an existential question for the future of young people, but also for the future of the European Union. That is not something that's percolated through to all minds. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the Commission, Commissioner Thyssen now has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President, honourable members. Europe is on a path to recovery. We see that employment figures continue to rise and that unemployment starts to drop. But, as we all know, the effects of the crisis are still being felt in many member states and regions, and young people in particular have borne the worst of it. Fighting youth unemployment remains a top priority for the European Commission. Therefore, I want to thank Thomas Händel and the Employment Committee of this House for their question on the Youth Guarantee and the Youth Employment Initiative. As you know, we have acted by adopting a solid policy framework on youth employment, the Youth Guarantee, and by dedicated funding through the Youth Employment Initiative to those young people not in employment, education or training. This funding comes in addition to substantial European Social Fund intervention and on top of national funding, which is equally needed to fight youth unemployment. The Youth Guarantee is a driver for real reform. It is the central plank in our efforts to improve access pathways to the labour market and facilitate the transition from education to the job market, and it has already started to bring results. As regards the Commission's findings of the Member States' evaluations, it is important to stress that Youth Guarantee implementation has started in all Member States following the planning phase. In 2014, all Member States presented their Youth Guarantee implementation plans. The plans identify precisely the measures to be taken to implement the Youth Guarantee. They outline the time frame for youth employment reforms and measures, the roles of public authorities and other organisations, and how it will be financed. The implementation of national plans is now underway. European Member States are making substantial efforts to implement the Youth Guarantee, which has proven to be a driver for structural reforms. The Joint Employment Reports 2015 and 16 list promising steps with concrete examples in many countries. For example, Member States are strengthening their public employment services to improve the outreach to those furthest from the labour market. In addition, they are building closer partnerships with the private sector to increase the number and improve the quality of job offers, apprenticeships and traineeships opportunities. The Youth Guarantee has also accelerated progress on delivering skills that the employers are actually seeking. The substantial European financial support available underpins the successful implementation of the Youth Guarantee. 3 years into its implementation, the Youth Employment Initiative, worth €6.4 billion when including the ESF contribution, this initiative proves to be a key lever for those Member States worst hit by youth unemployment. There is an indication that the Youth Employment Initiative and the European Social Fund have an important influence on the design of youth employment policy in Member States. For instance, the JEE and the ESF have supported a shift to demand-based delivery of active labour market policies for young people, with a much stronger focus on individualised assistance. Furthermore, the Commission urges Member States to continue paying special attention to the quality of offers delivered. Over the last 3 years, Member States have allocated years resources to concrete actions such as traineeships and apprenticeships, first job experiences and support for youth entrepreneurship. As a result, over 1.3 million young people in Europe have benefited from work and training opportunities. These are strong indications that the Youth Guarantee schemes are on track now, even if lots still needs to be done. As regards the uptake of the Youth Employment Initiative, the additional pre-financing swiftly decided by the European co-legislators in 2015, did concretely help to increase the work opportunities for young people on the ground. It is therefore of utmost importance to use the European available money swiftly. In this context, the 2017 draft budget includes the technical adjustment of the cohesion policy national envelopes for 2017-2020 in line with Article 7 of the Multiannual Financial Framework Regulation. All Member States' allocations under the Investment for Growth and Jobs goal of cohesion policy for the years 2017-2020 were reviewed and compared to the actual evolution of GDP. The effect of the adjustment is an increase of €4.6 billion in current prices in the 2017-2020 ceiling for commitments under economic, social and territorial cohesion, the heading 1b, and concerns Member States particularly affected by the economic slowdown of the past few years. We urge these Member States to use the additional funds for stimulating youth employment as well as for the integration of refugees and promoting investment. I believe that all Member States have to continue in the Youth Guarantee also by directing the necessary national resources to those dedicated actions. As regards the possible extension of the Youth Employment Initiative, the upcoming report on progress with the implementation of the Youth Guarantee and the Youth Employment Initiative and the mid-term review of the MFF will be the opportunity to consider how to further effective financial support to youth employment. Dear Members of Parliament, addressing youth unemployment and embarking on reforms in line with the Youth Guarantee remains a key political priority of the European Union. That is what our social market economy is about. As I have said many times before, it is the Commission's firm intention to steer the European Union more strongly towards social fairness. This means that no one should be left behind, in particular our youth. Europe cannot afford to let the human resources that our young people represent go to waste. Therefore, together with Member States, we should continue our efforts for the implementation of the Youth Guarantee and provide the appropriate financial support. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Commissioner Thyssen. And now we have the speaks from the different political groups. First of all, the European People's Party. Mrs. Morin-Chartier has the floor.
Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Madam Commissioner, I'd like to thank you for this debate on the oral question. We called for general mobilization of all Member States through the European Social Fund to focus on unemployment amongst young people with the Youth Guarantee on the one hand and also via the Youth Employment Initiative on the other hand. These are two levers, both of which we need if we're going to succeed to fight unemployment, and we've put all energy we have in this European Parliament into trying to organise front-loading. That's to say, make sure that the funding is available so that you can get actions off the ground very rapidly. And then last year, we adopted pre-financing for projects for helping young people into jobs going from 1% to 30%. So this is exactly what we're trying to achieve, all of us. And in order to be efficient, we're going to have to try and measure the effects of it, and that's what we're asking the Commission to do. What has happened? What have been the effect of the policies that we have tried to organise via the European Social Fund? Second point is the reason why we want to measure the effects of this is to adjust it. And Madam Commissioner, I'm wondering about this 25 to 30 bracket age group, that is, and we're wondering whether we need to simplify the measures and try and get the next projects run slightly differently, because it's the future of all of our young people that is at stake. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mrs. Morin-Chartier. The next speaker is Mr. BENIFEI. Your 2 minutes.
Grazie.
Thank you, President. I'd like to thank the European Commission for being present here this evening, for having answered our oral question. I'd like to use the time I have in order to put forward an idea. The Youth Guarantee and the Youth Employment Initiative are crucial tools for fighting against youth unemployment. And it's for this reason that we promoted these parliamentary initiatives. We asked for detailed information, and we wanted a long-term political commitment to push forward these programmes, and they're a huge potential. We've still got an emergency, but now we've got to go beyond the emergency approach to dealing with this problem. The Parliament knows this, as the organisations know full well, those working on the ground on a daily basis. The European Youth Forum, the Age Platform, CLOFACHO, the Disability Forum, the Eurosites, the European Trade Union Confederation, they all know, and they, in fact, this last one published an article on the European Youth Guarantee asking for continued financial commitment and for the elaboration of new methods to improve access for all operators to available funds. We're asking for a step forward because we see that we want to see that job offers are of high quality, and also that they be long-term sustainable job offers, and we want to reduce the red tape for companies involved with the Youth Guarantee. It's a pity to read in the documents for the preparation of the 2017 budget that the Commission is not planning new appropriations for youth employment initiatives over the next few years, and this is because of the front loading. But I think that the mid-term review on the Youth Guarantee, as long as the speech we've heard from the Commission today, will show that in fact this tool is a crucial one in order to ensure that these two programmes work. The European Parliament intends to carry on fighting youth employment. It's going to be our top priority, and very soon, as has been said, we'll be having a debate on the multi-annual financial framework, and I'm sure that we'll be able to work well together. Thank you very much.
BENIFEI, do you accept a blue card from Mr. JAKOVČIČ? Yes, Mr. JAKOVČIČ.
I just wanted to ask you something very straightforward in this blue card. Don't you think, as it shows in your report earlier, that there's a lack of synergy with local and regional authorities and everything that they can do for young people? Let's not forget that the social partners always work on things like education through the local and regional authorities.
Well, in reality, I believe that when it comes to the wording of the oral question, we do take into account, of course you can do better, we do take into account the need for institutional coordination. It's true that the Youth Employment Initiative and the Youth Guarantee can't work without efficient work on the ground. So we need to work at the European level, then move down to the national level, and then move further down to the local and regional level. That's crucial. I've seen that. I've travelled around, I've talked to operators, and this is a priority. And I think that the Commission has will have to take this into account. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The next speaker is Mr. Starbatty. You have 1.5 minutes.
Mr. Händel, you rightly stated that we are losing an entire generation, and if you look at the unemployment figures, that can only be corroborated. You went on to say that the youth guarantee programmes have had modest effect. The statistics show an unsatisfactory outcome, and then it's urgent. But we don't need a recipe that doesn't work. We need another way of doing things. We have to ask ourselves why youth unemployment in the southern periphery is so high. We have to ask why youth unemployment in Germany has fallen from 12 to 7%, and why unemployment has gone down from 10 to 5% in Germany. That's what we need to check. Why is the southern periphery drifting upwards? That's what we need to check. We need to take into account the consequences, you said. No, we need to look at the causes, in fact, and the causes are a misguided exchange rate underlying the EMU. That's why our exports are exploding and southern exports cannot flourish. Why? Well, because our exports are being subsidized. The southern periphery's exports are laden down with taxes. That's what we have to look at. Otherwise, these speeches will be heard once again in 2 years. I heard them 2 years ago, and we'll hear them in 2 years yet to come.
Harkin képviselő asszony következik 2 percben.
Mrs. Harkin has the floor for 2 minutes.
Thank you. The Youth Guarantee is a flagship project for the EU, and we must deliver on our guarantee. A guarantee is a very strong word. It means we provide a definite assurance. We promise, we pledge to young people that they will receive a quality offer of employment, a traineeship, an apprenticeship, further education within 4 months of becoming unemployed or of finishing education. And when we make that pledge, we must deliver. And in order to do that, we must have evidence-based policy making. It's certainly about adequate resources, but equally it's about effective spending. And that's why we posed this question to the Commission today. The only information we have to date are the 3 comments from the Court of Auditors. They have concerns about adequacy of funding, about the definition of a good quality offer, and how the Commission monitors and reports on the results of the scheme. I listened to the Commissioner here today, and perhaps the information is not yet available. Yes, I hear positive comments, but as to the specific question, I'm not a lot wiser. Now, one of the questions asked was, how do we streamline access to the Youth Guarantee? And access is crucial, and in this context, I made a complaint to the European Commission that young people with disabilities in Ireland are not able to access the Youth Guarantee. I received a reply from the Commission saying that they are satisfied with the Irish Government's response, who said there were alternative back-to-work supports for young people with disabilities. But the very point of the Youth Guarantee is that it is a guarantee for all young people, and there must be no exceptions. In Ireland, young people with disabilities are on disability allowance and not on job seekers, and so cannot access the Youth Guarantee. We need to streamline our system to ensure that this discrimination is stopped immediately, and we need the support of the European Commission in doing this. Member States should not be allowed to slip-slide out of their responsibilities.
Következő hozzászólónk González képviselő 1 percben.
Ms. González, 1 minute. Thank you, President. I'd like to thank, first of all, our comrade Thomas Händel, who is drafting this oral question to the Commission, because in effect the problem of youth unemployment, which concerns 1 out of every 5 Europeans, and in Spain 1 out of every 2 young people, means that we need social policies, and just for once the Commission should stop talking about austerity and think about young unemployed. And now, after 2 years of these programmes, we see harmful effects of these programmes and unequal consequences of these programmes. And there's no point having policies to promote employment. On the other hand, you are destroying thousands of jobs through anti-social policies and through austerity policies. And governments like the Spanish government have shown practically no interest at all in wanting to set in train these measures. They've only done it in a partial way, and created only precarious jobs, or casual jobs, and so a lot more damage has been done than good. And now Ms. Reintke has the floor. 1.5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dear colleagues, dear Commissioner, there are 2 things that we can learn from the Brexit referendum that took place last week. The first is young people with an overwhelming majority voted to stay in the European Union. They want to shape the future of Europe together. They want the European Union to solve political problems of today and to fight for their future. The second point that we can learn from this referendum is that, sadly, many young people, especially those who are unemployed, did not go and vote. They feel detached from political processes. For exactly these young people, we need to provide answers. The Youth Guarantee is one of the concrete answers where we have to deliver, where we can give those young people who feel detached, who are unemployed and who cannot find apprenticeships or jobs, where we can give answers to them. And this is why we will have to fight to make the Youth Guarantee a success, to give young people a voice in the process of the decision making, to create perspectives to those who feel left behind, especially after this Brexit vote. Madam Commissioner, young people did not let us down in the vote last week. I beg you, do not let young people down now.
Köszönjük szépen a hozzászólást. AGEA képviselő.
Thank you very much. Mrs. AGEA is our next speaker for 1.5 minutes.
Grazie.
Thank you, President. Thank you to the Commission. I feel like this is a déjà vu. We've talked about the Youth Guarantee before, and here we are, once again, asking for implementation of this measure to fight the effects of unemployment, and we're indeed asking that it should become a systemic measure to assist combating unemployment. But that's not the way we're going, because we know very well that in the face of the economic commitment behind this effort to fight unemployment, the results are very disappointing. I'm talking about the experience of my country, where this measure has failed grievously. And Mr. Benifei is from the same country, but I'm sure we're talking to different people. I have emails from so many young people writing to me saying that a year after embarking on the Youth Guarantee, they still have to be paid. And I wonder why. That's not right. And they're often just given some kind of training course or a placement, not even an apprenticeship, which would bring them closer to the world of work. I think we need to call things as they are and say that these instruments are not working. If money is raining down on parts of Europe without any checks, without really effectively tackling unemployment, then I think we need to try and adopt a more structural approach.
There is a blue card from Mr. Benifei. Do you accept this blue card? Yes. Only one question.
La questione.
The question raised by Mrs. AGEA is online. We do have huge problems with implementation, and in fact the oral question was looking into this, but my assessment, and I'd like to ask what the colleague thinks about this, my assessment is, should we carry on improving the expenditure, ensuring that there's no waste? People were talking just now about getting local authorities to audit and cooperating more with regional authorities. I think interrupting a project will be a mistake. Many people, Youth Guarantee has been a way of getting a working opportunity.
Mr. Benifei, we shouldn't play with words. Stopping, continuing, that's not the point. If we don't monitor how local authorities are working and how they're using this instrument, then we're not going to get anywhere. Less than a year ago, I asked Commissioner Thyssen about the management and tourney project of the Youth Guarantee Scheme, and they said they're monitoring it. What you're talking about is not exactly transparent management, and that's where we are. We're trying to check it. I think you need to do it.
Mrs. Sander has the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam President. Commissioner, 3 years after the launching of the Youth Guarantee, about one young person out of 5 is still unemployed. So we've got to ask ourselves about the efficacy of our policy, and I think we do have to take stock. And now Brexit has now shed harsh light on the way in which the European Union is not working, and I say above all it's shedding a harsh light on the way certain projects don't work in the member states. And I think that Brexit does ask us a lot of questions. So now I have various questions for you, Commissioner. What is the European Commission doing in order to simplify and make more accessible to a larger number of people the financing for youth employment? In France, because of the complexity of the procedures, the Youth Employment Initiative often just uses up the same funds but doesn't open up new beneficiaries, new pockets of beneficiaries. And after 2017 we're supposed to be taking stock. How can we ensure that in the future those who are not hit by our public policies are reached by this policy? I'm talking about young people who come from the rural area, or young people who have no skills. How can we reach them? And thirdly, despite the Erasmus Plus programme, young apprentices are very few in actually crossing borders at the moment, very few in number, and I think cross-border apprenticeships are too rare in number, too few in number. So what is Europe doing in order to further development cross-border apprenticeships? Thank you.
Do you accept a blue card from Mr. SZANYI? Ms. Sander, do you accept a blue card? Yes. Mr. SZANYI?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mrs. Sander, you said we need balanced conclusions, but your conclusions are related only to Europe. Would you be prepared to draw other conclusions, looking at things from the member state perspective? The state of Hungary moved the limit down from 18 years to 16 years, and in fact there are more unemployed. Is that the fault of the EU, for example?
Non, je vous rejoins.
No, I agree with you, Honourable Member. There is a responsibility here of the Member States. That's what I was saying about how the European Union is not working in some areas, but often it's the Member States that are at fault if these projects are not properly implemented. In France, for example, it's true there again that there have been major improvements which should make it possible for projects to be extended to a larger number of people. We need to get through to young people in very difficult circumstances, which is not always the case at the moment, and that should be possible now. Thank you.
Now the statistical facts are known. Mrs. ULVSKOG has the floor. Thank you very much for this very exciting debate. It seems that youth unemployment in southern Italy has been mentioned, and certainly a country like Sweden, which is relatively rich and unscathed, nevertheless also has big problems with unemployment. But let's look at the real reasons. The simple one is, or the simple fact is, that we have to continue with these programs that we have in place so that we can give young people an opportunity to get into the labour market. We've seen questions put to the Commissioner about whether this really works. Is it worth continuing? Is it going to cost too much? Does it produce too little? And we always get rather optimistic answers. And Mrs. Thyssen has said that it's a key to success. Well, let's hope that that key works and that we can continue to provide the money as long as it is possible so that it continues to work, that key.
Von STORCH képviselő asszonynak adok szót 1 percben.
Ja, vielen Dank. Wir sprechen heute
Mrs. Stock.
europäische Jugend.
Thank you. Today we're talking about the EU Youth Guarantee, which means that the member states are meant to give young people who've been unemployed for 4 months or longer a good quality training and unemployment or work placement offer. And for that, the EU has made almost 13 billion euros available from 2014 to 2020, but not even the Court of Auditors know whether any lasting jobs have been created by that, and even the German Trade Union Congress regards the Youth Guarantee as a dud. My fear is that the message of Brexit has gone ununderstood, and we're continuing to work on abstruse projects such as an EU-wide state-enforced employment policy. Instead of promoting ever more GDR-style socialist labour market projects, we should relieve medium-sized businesses of the umpteen billion spent on this so that they can create jobs. That's the job of the member states using their own discretion. The message of Brexit has to be less EU, more subsidiarity.
Mr. MUREŠAN has the floor now.
Commissioner, dear colleagues, young and unemployed means a young person does not have any income, therefore no perspective to buy a house, to start a family, no perspective to invest in its further education, to improve its chances for the future. This is why youth unemployment is so important. It's good that we're discussing it today. Two concrete, Madam Commissioner, two concrete proposals from my side and two concrete questions. Firstly, there are member states of the Union in which youth unemployment is below 10%, and then there are member states in which it is above 30–40%. Therefore, I truly believe that we have to do more for improving the exchange of best practices between the member states of the Union in order to give the young people of Europe the opportunity to be part of the best programs which exist in Europe, be it in their member state or in another member state. Therefore, also the question, what is the Commission doing in order to improve the exchange of best practices amongst the member states of the Union? Secondly, of course, we have to make sure that this program generates stable and well-paid jobs. That's why we should, in our evaluation, go beyond just the quantitative evaluation of these projects, how many jobs were created, but really make sure that these jobs are stable and well-paid. My two questions to you is, when will the Commission come up with the evaluation of this program? Why has it been delayed? And secondly, what is the Commission doing to inform the eligible young people of these opportunities? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mureşan. The next speaker is Madam JONGERIUS.
Dank u, voorzitter. Dank u, commissaris.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Thank you, Commissioner. The Youth Guarantee and the Youth Employment Initiative are taking us in the right direction, and for the millions of young people who have no job, they are very important. We're facing a crisis, and young people are not responsible for the crisis, but it has resulted in a lost generation. The European Union, as you said, Commissioner, is slowly emerging from the crisis, but in the wake of Brexit there are new uncertainties that have hit our economic prospects, and it is high time that we should conduct a debate now, and that we really should invest as rapidly as we can good money for good jobs, so that we can create prospects for countries that are pretty indebted. It's young people in Spain and in some countries in Central and Eastern Europe and in Greece who are the ones that deserve and need our help and support. We will continue to invest in the Youth Employment Initiative and Youth Guarantee, but we just basically need more good jobs in Europe.
Madam Ribeiro, 1.5 minutes.
Thank you very much, President, Commissioner. I'm happy to know that here we're seeing that there's going to be a better implementation of these programmes at the member state level. What's crucial that should be done is that we have a qualitative analysis so that we should know, in effect, what are the real results of these European-wide programmes. I don't think we can just accept situations where the member states that have the highest unemployment levels are just going to provide training courses and information, but not actually allowing young people access to a high quality job. So we need control and auditing. That's crucial. And also, Commissioner, what we need is to carry out monitoring and a very careful assessment. And this can't just involve quantitative assessment. It has to be a qualitative assessment as well, and a more individualized assessment of projects, so that we can really combat abuse by companies that are actually specialists in organising training courses, and so the young people carrying on forever being internees but never get a job. And then when it comes to the prolonging this initiative, and I think that's a good idea, and I'm giving you my opinion here, Commissioner, but we also have to have the certainty that there really is that we have a proper assessment throughout Europe of the way that this programme is going to be implemented. In my country, has one of the highest youth unemployment levels, and we can't have the same response as you have in Germany, where you have lower unemployment levels. So we need a differentiated approach. We need guarantees of differentiation between member states. Thank you. Thank you very much, President. Thank you very much. I was amazed at how complacent you were about how the youth guarantee was going, because just a month ago, when we're talking about national reform programmes, you were saying the opposite. You were saying, I quote, that the national youth guarantee relating to Spain, well, you were just waiting still for results, and that the people involved, the number of people involved, was very low. We've got more than 1 million unemployed among the young people. We've got 60,000 youth unemployed. So what is the youth employment initiative? What is the youth guarantee? Is it a guarantee to young people that within 4 months they will get a high quality job offer or a training policy? But we haven't provided this. There isn't sufficient financing. We don't have that. This 100 billion or more is not enough. We don't know how this 100 million is being spent. And we are champions of this programme. What we need is to change it from top to bottom, a root and branch reform. And the Commission has to force the Member States to actually meet certain minimum requirements. And they have to ensure that high quality jobs are created. And there has to be finance from the Member States as well, and we have to ensure this so that the promises we made in Parliament are kept.
You had your minute. Now we have Catch the Eye. Unfortunately, I'll not be able to give the floor to everybody, but let me stress once again that we will be giving one speaker from each group the floor, or people that have not had the floor today. Mr. Bogovič, please.
Hvala za besedo. Jamstvo za mlade in pobuda.
Thank you very much. The Youth Guarantee and the Youth Employment Initiative are two important measures that the EU has, and young people, a generation in great difficulty in the quest for work, can be helped via these two initiatives. Young people have to take different forms of education, and states have to make a link between the school and industry to enable people to move into jobs, and there has to be some control about the use of funds to that end. And it is the case that whenever you have measures of this kind, you need to make sure that they are implemented in the most efficient ways possible in the different member states. It's a question of responsibility incumbent on member states.
Thank you, President. As my colleague, Mr. Gutierrez, was saying, I was surprised, Commissioner, that you were so complacent, so about the way this programme is going in various countries, especially about what's happening in my country, in Spain. You said that there's been a great improvement in certain member states and this initiative is working. Well, this initiative is very important. This programme is important, but it's not working so well, Commissioner. And the data exists in Spain with this 1 million young people who are unemployed. 49.6 That's 30% higher than the norm, and it's really a worrying situation. And the measures taken by the Spanish government are totally mistaken. The €300 as a subsidy to the companies to help them is totally useless, and it's already been demonstrated in the programme that the national implementation is no good. So on behalf of my group, on behalf of the Spanish young people who are unemployed, we've got to change this programme so it can have a future. Thank you.
Marias képviselő úr következik.
Mr. Marias.
Thank you, Chair. The EU is full of poor and unemployed people. We already have more than 4 million young unemployed. The high unemployment and the high youth unemployment is due to the austerity of Mrs. Merkel. So such measures like the youth guarantee and the youth initiative that you are presenting are not going to have any results as long as the member states follow the diktats of Mr. Schäuble. So, Ms. Thyssen, despite the fact that you follow in the Commission, I mean the Schäuble doctrine, Dr. Schäuble himself is trying to put the blame on you because he does not want to bear the blame for the failure of his policy that turned the European South and especially Greece into an area of mass unemployment. Moreover, 6.2 billion euros is really just a drop in the bucket in order to be able to do anything substantial.
Barandika képviselő asszony következik.
Mrs. Bilbao Barandica.
Gracias, Presidenta. Thank you very much, President, Commissioner. I'd like to ask the Commission to carry on this work on the youth guarantee with realism and objectivity so that we can get the best possible programme of this programme, which is crucial for the labour future of the young people, also for the prestige of the European Union when we need it most. You've got to make sure that the right institutions are involved in this active employment and that the right institutions are responsible. Here in Spain, it's regional competence. In the Basque country, this doesn't make sense. In fact, the Spanish government has created a register for these so-called ninis, but it's so complex and opaque that some of the funds that should have gone into active employment programmes have actually just been spent on managing the programme and distributing information about the programme, just duplicating existing expenditure and having no impact on real unemployment. So I'd like to ask the Commissioner whether the Commission is aware of these problems, and if it is, are you going to come up with the strategy to correct these failures? I'd like an answer to my question. Thank you.
Epitideos képviselő úrnak adok szót.
Mr. Epitideos.
Thank you, Chair. The fact that we have a dysfunction with applying these programs for youth employment means that those plans as well will fail. And this is unfortunately unavoidable because right now in Greece we have youth unemployment of 67%, whereas the leadership of the EU does not really care about the young finding a decent job. What they're only interested in is taking the talented youth from third countries, like Mr. Juncker said. So practically they want cheap labor. So what they're doing is that they're destroying education all over Europe so that the youth will have no prospect whatsoever. And we can see this, we can see Greece being used as a guinea pig, and where education is now being destroyed. However,
ezzel a listának a végére értünk, azon képviselőt.
That concludes the list of speakers in the Catch the Eye procedure. Those that didn't get an opportunity to deliver their speech can do so in writing. So, Madam Commissioner, you have the floor.
Dank u wel, voorzitter. Beste collega's van het Europees Parlement.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Ladies and gentlemen, all you need to do is look at the figures on the statistics that is, on youth unemployment, it's been a positive trend. In fact, over the last year, this is going back a year from May 2016, 503,000 young people were unemployed. This is the lowest figure since March 2009, so there has been progress. Something has happened. I think we can recognize that. Does that mean I'm happy? Am I satisfied with that? Do I now think that everything's fine? No, far from it. If you look at the percentages of young people unemployed, you can see that it's 18.6%, but it's 0.2% better, but 18.6% of young people unemployed is a lot of young people. There are thousands of young people, more than 4 million unemployed. That's 4 million too many. So there is a positive element. Now, when it comes to the budgets, we've beefed them up considerably. The absorption rate has gone up, but only a little bit, and there's a series of reasons for that. We have to see what's going on in member states, because it is the member states that have had to execute the previous programs and haven't had the capacity when it comes to absorbing the pre-financing to fully exploit it. So it's been rather slow in getting that financing out. We're not happy with that, but what we'll do is to continue working on this on every imaginable front to create jobs for young people, particularly at a macroeconomic level, to create growth and jobs. And we've got the European Investment Fund to that end. That is beginning to bear some fruit now, because the investment was around or more than 100 billion euros, a very considerable amount of money. That's at a macroeconomic level. But we also need to work on it at a social policy level, and we'll be doing that with the youth guarantee, which will continue, but structural reforms are required as well to help these young people to get signed up for jobs, to encourage them and present incentives for them to set out on the road to employment. Now, the Youth Guarantee and the Youth Employment Initiative have particular characteristics we need to investigate. People are asking us why the evaluation is so late in the day, but it's not really late. It's coming just at the right time, because questions have been sent out and we should now pretty much have all of the data in. We could compile that. Either we've got it or it's coming in. We'll be analysing the data, and on the basis of all of that we'll be drafting a report, and we should then, in the course of the autumn, have that ready. If you invite me, I'll be very happy to come and present the report to you, and it will be the first foundation for what we'll do from there. Will we continue in the same way? If yes, then can we all agree on that? And then what about specific funds dedicated to the Youth Guarantee and young people? Well, obviously we are going to have to take into account the multi-annual financing framework, because we can't just make artificial money. We are dependent on member states, but what we can do are make some technical adjustments, and we know that the 4.6 billion euro budget is going to be broken down into various aspects, priorities, and one of these priorities will be to fight youth unemployment. And as far as the rest of it is concerned, we'll have to wait for the report to be drafted, and as I say, I'd be very happy to come and present the report to you in plenary if you should so wish. But don't think that the Commissioner or the Commission is happy with this 18.6% unemployment rate. No, not at all. That's too many young people. We want them in jobs. We don't want them to be unemployed. No, we cannot be satisfied until every last person is in a job. But it doesn't mean either that we're going to sit back and do nothing. No, we're going to continue to work arduously and with determination to improve the lives of young people. You can count on the European Commission. Thank you very much, Commissioner. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes that debate. The next item on the agenda is the report by Mr. Tamburrano on energy efficiency labelling. First of all, I shall give the floor to the rapporteur. You have 4 minutes, Mr. Tamburrano.
Doesn't work. Yes, okay.
Okay. Buonasera, Commissario.
Good evening, Commissioner, ladies and gentlemen. Energy labelling is a genuine European success story. Began 20 years ago and is emulated worldwide. It's the recognised passport, all recognise, that guarantees many products that they can come into the houses of 500 million citizens and give them information about their energy efficiency and other key characteristics. Alongside eco-design, energy labelling in the course of a few years has allowed European citizens to buy washing machines, fridges, ovens, lamps and boilers which are increasingly energy efficient, thus saving huge amounts of energy, dangerous emissions and money, and reducing illness, environmental damage and, no less important, partially reducing the political dependency of our continent. For a few years now, the information capacity of the label, however, we have to say, has lost its efficiency. Consumers are confused by too many different scales. The emergence of so-called plus classes has confused the borderline between grades and products in terms of energy consumption, price and other things. And therefore it's high time to renew this passport, making it more effective, efficient. We need to harness the progress made by IT, which is fundamental to communicate and represent the current and future market. In drawing up this draft report that it's been my honour to do, I've endorsed the objectives of the original proposal to restore the ranking by scrapping the plus signs as soon as possible, making available digital format information and improving market surveillance. I've listened to the voices of consumers, industry, SMIs, surveillance authorities, shops, standardisation bodies, NGOs and citizens in the 5-star movement. I've deliberately offered a broad and complex report with the aim of restoring citizens' trust after the scandals in the car sector, which undermine the credibility of all of our regulatory efforts. I hope I've contributed to a modern labelling system, let's call it 2.0, which is commensurate with the times. And it shouldn't just be a sticker, but also the gateway to a whole database of products that everyone can use.